Most people never fail because they are incapable. They fail because they leave the story before the turning point. And the cruel part is they usually leave right before things start to change. Daniel learned this the hard way at 32 years old. On the outside, his life looked reasonable, stable, job, small apartment, a car that started every morning if he turned the key twice. But inside there was a quiet pressure building, the kind that grows when a person suspects they are capable of more, yet keeps living smaller than that possibility. Daniel had plans once. Real plans: start a business, learn, design, build something that mattered, but every attempt followed the same quiet pattern: excitement, effort, slow progress, doubt, exhaustion, and then the decision to stop. 3 months here, 4 months there, never long enough to see momentum arrive. And after each abandoned attempt, he told himself the same comforting lie: maybe this just was not the right thing. Maybe the next idea would work faster. It sounded logical, but something deeper was happening. Daniel was unknowingly obeying an invisible clock, the clock most people live by, the emotional clock of short-term results. If effort does not produce visible reward quickly, the brain assumes the path is wrong. Motivation drops, attention drifts, doubt grows. Slowly, quitting begins to feel rational. Daniel did not realize he was repeating this cycle until one quiet Tuesday evening, when he stayed late at the office pretending to finish spreadsheets he did not care about. In truth, he was watching a video interview with an older entrepreneur. The man said something simple, almost careless, but it landed like a stone dropped in still water. Most people quit in the valley, he said. Not the beginning, the valley, the long stretch where effort continues, but results stay invisible. He paused, smiled, and added, if you stay there 6 months, the curve usually bends. That line would not leave Daniel's mind. 6 months. Not excitement, not motivation. Time. 6 months. Suddenly every abandoned attempt of his past flashed back like scenes from a film. Marketing project he quit after 12 weeks. The design course he left halfway. The online store he shut down in month 4. Each one stopped right before 6 months. The pattern was almost embarrassing. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the dark window, reflecting his tired face. What if the problem was not lack of talent? What if the real mistake was leaving too early? That thought felt dangerous because it removed his favorite excuse. If success required 6 months of staying, then quitting early was not wisdom. It was impatience disguised as intelligence, and impatience is harder to defend than failure. He closed the video, but the idea kept expanding inside his mind. Maybe effort works differently than people expect. Maybe progress hides longer than motivation lasts. Maybe the real advantage is not talent, but duration. Daniel opened a blank document and typed 3 words at the top: 6-month rule. Underneath, he wrote a sentence that felt both simple and heavy. No judging results before 6 months. No quitting. No switching strategies. No emotional decisions. Just work and time. He stared at the rule, feeling a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief because the pressure to succeed quickly suddenly disappeared. Fear because this rule would expose something uncomfortable. If he still failed after 6 months of focused effort, then excuses would vanish. There would be nowhere left to hide. Daniel saved the document and shut down his computer. The office lights hummed softly above him. Outside, the city moved like usual, cars passing, strangers, talking, life continuing, unaware that one quiet decision had just shifted the direction of a man's future. Because the truth about the 6-month rule is simple but brutal. It removes the comfort of early escape. Once you start the clock, you must face the valley: boredom, doubt, slow days, invisible progress. Most people cannot tolerate that tension. They want proof too soon. They want reward before endurance, and that is exactly why they stop right before the curve bends. Daniel did not know if the rule would change his life yet, but for the first time he suspected something powerful. Success might belong to the people who simply stay longer than their doubt, and that possibility was enough to make him try again. The next morning he woke up earlier than usual, not because he felt inspired, but because the clock had started day 1 of 6 months. No drama, no announcement, just a quiet commitment that this time he would not leave the valley early. Even if progress stayed invisible, even if doubt returned, even if motivation disappeared, because the real test was no longer talent or luck. The real test was duration. Could he remain when the results refused to appear? Could he keep building when the world offered no applause? That question would shape everything that followed, and like most important questions in life, the answer would not come quickly. It would come slowly through ordinary days, repeated longer than most people are willing to endure, because the difference between quitting and winning is often measured in months, not moments. And most people leave before the months reveal what patience was quietly building for them all along. The first 30 days pass quietly. No breakthrough, no dramatic progress, just repetition.
Daniel woke up earlier than he used to. Not at 5 in the morning like productivity videos suggested, just earlier than yesterday.
40 minutes carved out before work. That time belonged to the project. He had decided to build something simple, a small digital design studio, logos, branding kits, clean work. Nothing revolutionary, but it was a skill he had once enjoyed and then abandoned halfway through learning. This time the rule was different. No judging before 6 months. At first the rule felt almost relaxing. The pressure to make it work quickly disappeared. Daniel no longer refreshed analytics or checked for validation every day. The rule removed that question entirely. Day 31 arrived. Still nothing impressive. The work looked slightly better than week 1, but not dramatically better. No clients yet. No recognition. Just small improvements only he could see. Normally this is where his old pattern would begin. The internal voice. Maybe this isn't the right direction. Maybe I should pivot early. Maybe something else would work faster. But the rule blocked those thoughts. 6 months. Not 3 weeks. Not 2 months. 6. So Daniel kept working. Days became routines. Routines became rhythm. Rhythm became something almost mechanical. He noticed something strange around week 7. The emotional swings started fading. Before, his motivation would spike during excitement and collapse when results slowed. Now motivation mattered less because the rule removed the decision. He wasn't working because he felt inspired. He was working because the clock was still running. And something interesting happens when quitting stops being an option. Your brain stops negotiating. By month 2, the work improved faster. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Daniel could design things in 2 hours that previously took 5. His eye for spacing sharpened. His color choices stopped looking random. Small details began aligning. No one applauded, but progress had quietly begun compounding. And that is where most people misread effort. They expect improvement to appear in a straight line, a little better every day. Real progress rarely behaves like that. For weeks it feels flat, silent, stubborn. Then suddenly the curve tilts upward, but only for people who stayed long enough. Month 3 arrived. 90 days. In the past, Daniel would have already quit by now. 90 days used to feel like proof that something wasn't working, but now 90 days felt different. Not like an ending, like a checkpoint. The valley was still there, but it felt less threatening because the timeline was already decided. And then something small happened. One evening, Daniel uploaded a new logo concept to an online portfolio site. Clean typography, simple icon, nothing extraordinary. 2 days later, a message arrived. A startup founder, needed branding, small project, modest budget. Daniel stared at the message longer than necessary. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was the first external signal that his effort was no longer invisible. He completed the project carefully. The client liked the result, left a positive review. Then silence returned. No new clients the following week, or the week after. This is the moment most people misunderstand. The first small success feels like the beginning of momentum, but often momentum still needs time to stack. Without the 6-month rule, Daniel would have interpreted the silence as confirmation that the opportunity was random. Instead, he kept working, portfolio growing, skill sharpening, time passing. Month 4 arrived. This is where the valley deepens for many people. Initial excitement is gone. Progress is slow again. Doubt returns quietly, and Daniel felt it too. One night after work, he opened his portfolio page. Still only one completed client project. 4 months of effort for that? The old voice returned stronger. Maybe you're wasting time. Maybe this is another dead end. His cursor hovered over the folder containing his design files. Closing it would be easy. No one would question the decision. 4 months is respectable effort. Quitting now could be explained logically. But then he remembered the rule. 6 months. The rule wasn't about optimism. It was about removing emotional decisions during the valley. So instead of quitting, Daniel did something simple. He opened a new canvas, another logo, another concept, another hour, another day. Something subtle happened during month 5. Daniel stopped thinking about results entirely. The routine had become identity. He was no longer trying to build something. He was simply someone who designed every day. Skill grew faster now. Ideas arrived easier. Execution sharpened. Without noticing, he had crossed the most dangerous psychological barrier, the phase where quitting used to happen. And because he stayed, the curve began bending, at first slowly, then slightly faster. 2 small clients arrived in the same week, then another referral, then a slightly larger project. Nothing explosive, but undeniably different. And this is the part most people never see. The shift doesn't feel dramatic. There is no music playing, no cinematic moment, just quiet confirmation that the valley is ending. But Daniel still had one more test waiting, because just when momentum begins to appear, life tends to challenge your patience one final time. Month 5 ended with something he did not expect. His company announced layoffs. Half the department was being restructured. Daniel wasn't fired, but his workload doubled overnight. Late hours, constant pressure, energy drained. The design routine that had been easy to maintain suddenly became difficult. Days passed where he arrived home exhausted. Opening the design software felt heavier. The voice returned again. Maybe pause the project, just until work stabilizes. Reasonable, logical, but the 6-month clock was still running, and only 32 days remained. 32 days. That was all that remained. Daniel stared at the number on the calendar, like it carried weight. 5 months behind him, one final stretch ahead. The strange part was how ordinary everything still felt. No massive breakthrough, no viral moment, just steady movement. But something inside him had already changed. In the past, his projects lived or died based on emotion. Excitement started them, doubt ended them. Now emotion had lost authority. The rule had quietly replaced it. 6 months. That was the contract. And contracts do something powerful to the mind. They remove negotiation. So Daniel kept going. Some nights he worked only 30 minutes. Some nights 2 hours. A few nights he fell asleep on the couch and missed the routine entirely. But the next day he returned. Because the rule wasn't perfection. It was duration. Week 1 of the final month passed. 3 new client inquiries appeared. Not massive companies, not life-changing contracts, but something had shifted. The small portfolio that once felt empty now had substance. The reviews created trust. The work itself looked sharper. Skill had compounded quietly while doubt screamed loudly, and doubt had been wrong. Daniel noticed another change too. People started treating him differently when he spoke about his work. Earlier in the year, when he mentioned trying to build a design studio, the responses were polite but distant. "Oh, that's cool." Now the conversations sounded different. "You're still doing that. How many projects have you done? Do you have a link?" Consistency had created credibility, not brilliance, not luck, just visible endurance. By week 3 of month 6, something surprising happened. One of his early clients referred him to a startup accelerator group. Several new companies were launching products and needed branding. Suddenly Daniel had more work requests than free hours. Not overwhelming, not chaotic, but unmistakable. Momentum. He sat at his small kitchen table one night, staring at the project list in front of him. 5 active clients, 2 waiting inquiries. The numbers were still modest, but compared to month 2, they felt almost surreal. And that's when the realization arrived. Nothing magical happened in month 6. Month 6 simply revealed what the previous 5 months had been building. The valley had hidden the progress. The rule had protected it. Without that rule, Daniel would have walked away long before the curve appeared, just like every other time in his past. Just like millions of people quietly do with their ideas, skills, and ambitions. Because the most dangerous illusion in personal growth is believing progress should feel visible early. It rarely does. Effort compounds silently at first. Skill sharpens quietly. Reputation builds slowly. And during that silent phase, the brain starts demanding evidence, proof, reward, validation. When those signals don't appear quickly, people assume the path is wrong. But often the path isn't wrong. The timeline is, 6 months after writing those 3 words in the empty document, Daniel opened the file again. 6-month rule. He read the sentence he had written on the first night. No judging results before 6 months. No quitting. No switching strategies. No emotional decisions. Just work and time. He leaned back in his chair and laughed softly. The rule had not guaranteed success. What it guaranteed was something far more valuable. It forced him to stay long enough to see reality. Because talent is overrated. Motivation is temporary. But time applied consistently becomes a weapon most people never use. And the truth Daniel discovered is uncomfortable. The valley breaks people long before effort has the chance to work. Not because they are weak, but because they expect progress to show up early. They want signals within weeks. But real compounding often hides for months. That's why the 6-month rule matters. It separates emotional decisions from strategic ones. When you commit to a fixed duration, the brain stops asking the wrong question. Is this working yet? Instead, it asks a better one. Am I still within the window? If the answer is yes, the only job left is to continue. No drama, no overthinking, just staying. And staying longer than your doubt. Daniel didn't quit his job that year. He didn't suddenly become famous, but his design studio kept growing quietly on the side. Month after month, the work improved, the clients increased, the confidence built from evidence instead of hope, all because one simple rule removed the most common mistake, leaving too early. And once you see this pattern, you can never unsee it. Look at almost any skill. Fitness, writing, business, learning a language. Most people start with excitement. They last a few weeks, sometimes a few months. Then the valley arrives and convinces them nothing is happening, so they stop, not realizing the curve was still forming underneath the surface. The people who succeed are rarely the most gifted. They are the ones who quietly outlast that invisible phase, the ones who make a decision before emotion can interfere, the ones who choose duration over doubt. So if there is one rule worth remembering, it is this. Before you judge the outcome of anything meaningful in your life, give it 6 real months. 6 months of consistent effort. 6 months of refusing to quit during the valley. 6 months of letting time reveal what impatience never allows you to see. Because most people are not losing to better competitors. They are losing to their own timeline. They stop at month 3. They leave at month 4. They walk away right before month 6 bends the curve. But if you stay, if you simply refuse to exit the valley early, you will eventually discover something powerful. The world doesn't reward the fastest starters. It rewards the ones who remain when everyone else quietly disappears.